Hello, builders. I'm hiding out in my bedroom to film because my husband is taking a conference call in the other room. Oh, the joys of doing this during the pandemic. Yay. I wanted to pull together some of the concepts that we touched on but didn't really dive into in week 2 and tie it and give you an idea of where we're going, even though it's a shorter week here in the States with Memorial Day yesterday, what I want you to be thinking about now that we are in the thick of week 3. So week 1, just to remind you, we went through the warm-up, which is the silly toes, all 8 moves. Then in week 2, you got 2 videos, I think, showing you the breakdown of what I think of is the final step in the running workout process. It is foam rolling. We broke this up into a few videos to make it easier to digest. And the thing that we would have left out and didn't really talk about is the reason most people don't foam roll, or runners always say they do, but they don't. They lie, and that's okay. If you're on something as soft as a pool noodle that's really comfortable, it's not going to be effective. And you're going to be like, why am I doing this? This makes no sense. And that's fair. So I recommend what I use is a PVC riser pipe from Home Depot that costs $7.99, and it's made of plastic. I mean, it's plumbing pipes. That stuff's hard, and yeah, I use that on my shins when I can't get downstairs to that because my kids are doing schoolwork. I have this. It's steel. Yep, I use that on my shins and my thighs too. Now, it might take you a bit to work up to that, and that's totally okay. I would never necessarily recommend jumping directly into that to day 1. But the second you use something that's really firm, you're going to understand what we're doing. It hurts the first few times that you do it, but it is really important to mobilize your muscles in order to run pain-free for the rest of your life, even though it's painful while you do it. No one gets hurt from doing my foam roll routine. They get hurt by not doing the foam rolling routine. Now, you don't have to do this every day, but it feels good enough that you could. I strongly advocate any run that is harder effort than easy effort, and any run that is longer than 1 hour. For you guys, I don't think anything that we do in build quite meets that test. So just do it, start where you are, do what you can, and don't worry about being behind. We've already given you a couple of minutes extra to do before the run, and this after could take longer than just a few minutes, especially while you get used to it. Now, you can do the whole routine start to finish just the way that I want you to once you've learned all the moves in about 4 minutes, but it's going to take time. And especially it's going to take time getting comfortable, really settling into it. So with that in mind, I wanted to speak very quickly about why that matters. What we're doing is we're mobilizing your muscles. And that sounds a little hokey because it's really hard to standardize for that in a clinical trial type of double-blind testing environment. But what I can tell you as a quick visual demonstration is this. If you ever, to my knowledge, we only have like one guy in here, but men get manicures too, so I'm not going to judge. So if you've ever been to get a manicure and the manicurist like massages your forearm, see what's happening with my fingers? You massage your forearm and your fingers are going to move involuntarily. And it's kind of a cool trick when they do it and you're like, oh, that's so nice. That's because the tendons that make your fingers move actually attach up here at your elbow. You should be able to do the same thing with your toes when you rub your shin. I know. Yes, you should. It has nothing to do with your size. I don't care what size you are. I don't care how overweight others have told you that you are or that you think yourself to be. Every human should be able to rub their shins with their toes moving involuntarily. When they don't, that's a pretty good sign that what we need to do is mobilize your shins. And I'll end on this note. One of the most common runner maladies is called plantar fasciitis. And a lazy doctor will tell you that this comes from excess weight. And that's not true. It comes from overuse. That's not necessarily true. It comes from lack of mobility. And what I care about, comes from 2 places. One is lack of mobility, and 2 is all of the things that we do to prevent mobilization. which is why week 3, we talk about our feet. So when we, even you can do foam rolling all the time. If you're not on something firm enough, we're not going to be cleaning the junk out in between your muscles so that your tendons can move freely in your shins. And that means, and if they aren't moving freely, then your toes are not moving freely and all the muscles down there are not doing what they're intended to do. So imagine that on top of a sock that squeezes your toe together and a shoe that does the same. So I'm not telling you to throw away your running shoes and all your socks. I did that a long time ago. What I will say is this. The logic tends to be as follows. I am training now. I joined a running program, so I need bigger cushiony socks. And then when you go to buy shoes, they're going to be like, oh, well, if you're on your feet a lot, then you need big cushiony shoes. And, oh, you are overweight, a new runner, you just had a baby. They'll tell you any reason to sell you a heavier stability shoe. Now, this is not categorically de facto bad. The problem is it's not real prescriptive or well thought out either. A stability shoe exists to do one thing, offset hip weakness. You could be totally comfortable in a neutral shoe at every size and every weight. A stability shoe will no longer be fun, comfortable, or interesting once you have done our strength circuits enough to have increased your hip strength to the point that your toes and your feet want to move a lot more. That's the final reason why I ask you to do all of your strength circuits barefoot. So where I am now, I care a lot about two things. One, mobilizing my shin. And another thing I do, I have a video, I do it with a therapist thumb when I don't have and this costs like $6 on Amazon. When I don't have that, I can use something like a fork that I grabbed from my kitchen to basically do the same thing. We're just scraping. You can Google things like Graston technique, and there's a lot out there. But frankly, all you need to do is get that shin mobilized so that your toes, it's hard to get them in the video, and plus my toes are really nasty right now. But to mobilize your shin to the point that the tendons for your toes that connect up to your knees, that those move independently when you rub your shin. And in fact, when you do the first couple of moves in my foam rolling series, the shin roll and the bone saw, you'll find over time that your toes will start curling independently while you're doing those moves. That's a good thing. That's a very good thing. We want that. That's mobility in motion. Okay, so now that your toes are moving independently, hopefully, because we've loosened up your shin and we've given it the ability to, that is going to offset some of the issues causing pain in your heel that is known as plantar fasciitis. The next step there is not to add more cushioning and more protection, but rather less. Because you see, when you're in a thick shoe with a thick sole and a whole lot of cushioning around the shoe and a whole lot of cushioning in your sock, that's all going to compress your foot and inhibit its ability to move, even in a neutral shoe. So I highly recommend moving towards, now this is just like where we want to get to later. I'm not going to tell you what to feel or how to deal, but I will make an impassioned plea for 5-toed socks. By keeping your toes separated, you're reducing the opportunity to chafe, you're reducing blisters. Yes, they are much thinner, but the friction that you're going to get that causes blisters is going to come from, more often than not, it's going to come from having too much on your feet, and being out way too long. So the friction is going to come from the abnormal rubbing that happens when your foot is searching for traction in a shoe that's inhibiting its movement. Now, that sounds really big and really fancy. So TLDR, hey, think twice about your shoes. You don't need as much cushioning as everyone says that you do. In fact, more can be less good. Yay. And we're going to think about that over the course of the week. So what I want you to do, if you've done nothing else yet, I would like you to get up and do the first couple moves of silly toes, barefoot, and just feel it. Feel what happens with your feet fully pressed against the ground. As what do your toes do when you attempt to lift your heels off the ground? I don't care if you get your heel off the ground or not. I don't care how high you go. What I care about is, what do your toes do while you're doing it? Odds are pretty good that if you lock your knees especially, your toes are going to curl against the floor. And that's a sure sign that your glutes are not firing when that happens. Okay. So 90% of what you've heard If you've ever been told that this is weight related, it probably isn't. Form is a function of strength, not weight. It's ridiculous. You're not going to see that anywhere. I can't tell you the weight matters doesn't. I cannot tell you that weight matters because it really truly doesn't. What matters is mobility. What matters is strength. We can make you strong enough that you're going to be pretty much indestructible, and we can make you mobile enough that your body can respond and adapt to anything you ask it to do. That's the amazing thing about human bodies. That's what they do. They adjust. As long as they're not being constrained and squished in something that's supposed to be good for you, that actually inhibits what your body was designed to do. So you are coached, you are loved. Go back and think about what we needed to get out of week 2. Let's take the foam rolling a little more seriously. Yay! You don't have to go directly to the steel thing, but we would like you to use something. And then from there, as we go into week 3, I want you to think a lot about your feet. I want you to think about what they're doing and what they're not doing. And Nakia, if you don't mind, in tomorrow's thread, if you could ask everyone, just take a poll. During your run today, what did your toes do? Did you notice? And really pay attention to it. Do you find them curling in your shoes? Do they kind of rub against each other, which is a sure sign that we need to start separating those toes, that your sock is pushing them together. If your feet are totally, like my feet are completely weak and they have no strength, cool. That's a good thing to know and a great place to start, but it's not a diagnosis that requires a prescription of less. You're coached, you are loved. Let's win at mobility in week 3. Spoiler alert, you already are.